Willow is walking down the aisle, according to General Hospital Weekly spoilers for July 28 to August 1, 2025. But what will she do once she arrives? Willow's ultimate revenge? Willow Tate is a hot mess. She understands that her life is in chaos, but she refuses to recognize that everything is entirely her fault. She now blames Nina Reeves, who never informed her that she had a sexual relationship with Drew Kane. That does not erase the fact that Willow chose to sleep with her husband's uncle and support him above her own children. Laura Wright chops off her head on General Hospital, but Wes steals the show. Willow makes it down the aisle to the altar, where Drew is joyously ready to marry her. But does she go through with it or dump Drew at the altar? If she goes through with it, is she going to make Drew's life a miserable hell as part of some bizarre vengeance scheme? By the conclusion of the week, Willow makes a commitment that sounds ominous. Portia Robinson and Curtis Ashford apologize for revealing Nina's secret, but they had no choice but to do so. Jason's desperate determination while Liesl Obrecht will witness her niece's dramatic walk down the aisle. She will still make time for Jason Morgan. He tracks her down immediately after the wedding to have a lengthy conversation about Britt Westbourne. General Hospital Weekly spoilers. Willow's wedding surprise. Jason's Britt obsession. Liesl is astonished to learn that Jason saw someone who looked exactly like Britt at the airport. But is she surprised because she doesn't know Britt is still alive, or because she is? If she had been hiding Britta for more than 2 years, one would assume she would not want anyone to locate her. Later in the week, Jason expresses his suspicions to a surprised Anna Devane. Other Port Charles happenings. Elizabeth Weber welcomes a new home visitor. Who could it be? Does Willow lose her home if she decides not to marry Drew? Perhaps it has to do with Rick Lansing's new customer. Emma Scorpio Drake and Gio Palmieri devise a strategy that threatens Jocelyn Jack's work. Jocelyn is surprised when Carly Spencer expresses her concerns about Vaughn. General Hospital spoilers for the next 2 weeks revealed some unexpected twists. Willow Tate is expected to bash Drew Kane at the altar. Elizabeth Liz Baldwin deals with an unexpected house guest. Meanwhile, Jason Morgan informs Liesl Obrecht that he has seen Britt Westbourne. Continue reading and let's discuss what's coming up on the ABC soap show. Willow Tate's wedding walk. Let us start with Drew and Willow's wedding. Curtis Ashford informed Willow that Drew and Nina Reeves had a fling. The bride was outraged and approached her mother, who acknowledged it. Willow felt thoroughly deceived, but she also refused to accept responsibility for her own actions. Drew Kane blasted a preview clip for Monday's episode shows Willow continuing to go down the aisle in her wedding attire. While everything appears normal, the daggers in Willow's eyes cannot be mistaken. Willow is undoubtedly going to blast Drew at the altar in front of everyone. Scout Kane's situation makes me very sad. That little girl will be bewildered. Why can't these things happen away from children? Liz Baldwin's unexpected houseguest. According to General Hospital spoilers for the week of July 28, Liz will be the focus of another must-see scene. It is reported that she welcomes an unexpected houseguest. Liz was one of the few people who consented to help with the wedding, so I suppose Willow is her houseguest. Willow wouldn't be welcome to reside with the Quartermain or Corinthos families. Liesl Obrecht and Jason Morgan Connect fans should also expect Jason to continue reeling and perplexed after seeing Britt at the airport. Jason spoke with Carly Spencer about what he saw. Carly reminded Jason that Britt had died. The right-hand man understands this, but he can't shake the vision he saw in the airport that day. Jason is also aware that he and Sonny Corinthos both returned from the dead. Jason won't be able to get this out of his head until he discovers the truth. Jason then tries to find Liesl. The right-hand man will tell her what he witnessed and ask if she knows anything. I'm quite interested to see how Liesl reacts. Is she in on Britt's story? Or will she be as surprised as everyone else? So, of course, Kelly Thibault has returned to General Hospital. We've seen her on film twice so far. Hopefully more will come. When Jason Morgan was dropping off Sasha Gilmore overseas, he noticed a woman who seemed familiar, like Britt, at the airport about to board a flight to Croatia. And then Jason gets some memories of his romance with her, which confirms that sure, it is at least a Britt lookalike, but he is not permitted to accompany her aboard the plane. And then we saw Britt again. She got out of a car in Croatia and exclaimed, "It's good to be back." Also in Croatia was the courier who obtained that information from Dalton and was being trailed by WSB agents Jocelyn Jackson Vaughn, as well as Sidwell. According to rumors, Liesl may be working with Dalton. So Britt being on a collision path with Dalton is intriguing. Her presence when the rumor first surfaced all fits together well. Kelly Thibault's return to General Hospital. Britt Westbourne's mysterious comeback and Croatia connection so far. We don't know what Britt has been up to in the 2 years after she reportedly died. Last we saw her, she died in Liesl's arms after being stabbed by the hook killer's poison hook. Of course that was Heather Weber. Despite Dante Falconeri's smack talk to Rocco Falceroni, the truth was that Britt died a hero, regardless of her life circumstances. She gave up herself to save his ex-stepsister Jocelyn. And of course we had to question if she was simply someone who happened to look like Britt or had plastic surgery or anything. However, it has now been proven that Kelly Thibault has brought Britt back to life in some way. General Hospital's biggest obstacle, so you have to wonder how General Hospital will explain how Britt escaped the poison hook attack. Right away, that's the most probable aspect of this. The fact that Liesl's daughter had Huntington's illness posed a further challenge for the General Hospital authors. She was already having symptoms. And no, they're not going to avoid it or simply rewrite it as if it never happened because Jason had flashbacks to discussing Britt's diagnosis. So there are already a lot of individuals on soap social media who are outraged at the thought of General Hospital trying to nonchalantly explain her Huntington's diagnosis because, after all, it is a genuine condition. It is incurable and ultimately fatal, and Britt was already suffering, and her father, Caesar Faison, had a severe case by the time he died. So, the General Hospital writers are nuts if they claim it was cured because that is medically impossible. So they need to be careful and I hope they do it well. We actually know a few of ways General Hospital can reverse Britt's death without demeaning a major and incurable medical condition. You know, they can go all soapy and claim it's Britt, but it's actually a Britt Westbourne clone developed by Dalton's lab during one of his strange experiments on humans and animals. Yes, that is ridiculous, but it is a soap. And recall, there were vampires on the General Hospital spin-off Port Charles, and Anna Devane once had an affair with Casey, the space alien. Remember that if you're wondering what General Hospital will and won't do. General Hospital's options for explaining Britt's survival. So, a clone could explain Britt's unexpected reappearance without Huntington's. That would also eliminate Heather's hook killer assault, because it would be similar to but not the same as her. So maybe Liesl was fiddling with Britt's DNA, sampling it, attempting to discover a cure, and she created a clone, possibly one she intended to experiment with, but it was too late. Second, even if Liesl had protected Britt from the hook poison, she would still have Huntington's disease. So maybe Liesl and Dalton are working on a cure together. And it's possible that Dalton and Sidwell were referring to Liesl when they indicated the boss is dissatisfied with the lack of development. Another possibility would be to claim that Britt never actually had the sickness. Although one Faison had the disease, Britt's Huntington's diagnosis may not have been accurate. Now I know she saw a different doctor out of state and so on. However, General Hospital is particularly bad for retcons. So they could conclude that someone changed her test results out of vengeance. Lots of people despised her. The person who probably hates Britt Westbourne the most is Lulu Spencer. But she was in a coma at the time, so it couldn't be her. If they're going to suggest someone rigged Britt's test, it's possible they were drugging her to cause the symptoms. That's kind of soapy. Britt's diagnosis at General Hospital. Was it faked? If they take this way, my best guess is Nicholas Cassadine, Lulu's brother. He certainly could have done it. He had the resources. There is a hint that after Leslie Weber dies, a Cassadine will return. Nicholas could be involved in this. Nick might have done it to punish Britt for stealing his sister's embryo. And remember, he was darker and more brutal back then. Nicholas was once engaged to Britt, but he ended the relationship after he discovered she took Lulu's embryo. He eventually softened up on Britt, but there is plenty of possibility for a revenge retcon including Nicholas. General Hospital. Nicholas Darkside, this is the same guy that hired someone to shoot Hayden Barnes but instead hit Drew Kane Quartermain. It is also possible that Luke Spencer was involved. He was still alive at the time and he would have definitely done that. He wasn't a Faison fan and would have been upset at Britt. So there are choices, but Britt's destination, Croatia, coincides with Dalton's courier's destination, which appears to be no coincidence. One of the General Hospital leakers spread rumors that Britt was herself, but without her memories. They said her memories would return. So whatever method they used to treat the hook poisoning may have erased her memories, and Dalton may have devised a radical therapy to fry the Huntingtons out of Britt's brain. Even removing a portion of her brain from its original location caused her to experience temporary amnesia. Amnesia loves soaps. General Hospital. Does Britt have a secret twin? Another possibility is that this new Britt is a secret twin discovered by Liesel while researching a cure for Britt's Huntington disease. We know Liesel and Faison had a lot of enemies. If Britt had a twin, someone may have taken one of their children. Liesel might not have even realized it. That has happened several times on General Hospital. Faison might have snatched one of the twins and kept it away from Liesel because he was deranged. And Britt arrived on the scene as an adult. So her past may be altered in any way they desire, including introducing a twin. Liesel might have discovered the twin, employed WSB memory mapping, and implanted Britt's memories to replace the other woman's. Liesel may have saved Britt's memories as a result of the Huntington disease. Exploring amnesia and secret twin theories in Britt Westbourne's General Hospital return. So, one last thing, General Hospital may state that Britt's Huntington's disease is in remission for the time being thanks to a drug, whether an existing one or an experimental treatment. I hope Britt has her memories or gets them back soon, and Jason is the one to find her down, so they can have a second chance at romance. Jason requires a woman. Kelly Thibault also expressed her strong desire for Jason and Britt to reconcile. She really liked the combination. Hopefully that serves as a clue. We will see. As the morning shed a warm golden color over Port Charles, the day of Willow's wedding dawned with more excitement and tension than anyone could have expected. It had begun as a serene, cheerful morning, with hints of promise and new beginnings. Willow stood in front of the mirror, her white lace gown falling beautifully to the floor, her eyes filled with both apprehension and delight. Michael had been aloof recently, which she attributed to stress. There was too much at stake. Family conflict, legal issues, emotional turmoil over the Corinthos legacy, and it had all filtered into their relationship. Willow was hopeful that this day would be a watershed moment. Downstairs, visitors began to arrive, some with wary smiles, others with veiled fears. Carly whispered tough orders to the personnel, attempting to ensure perfection while monitoring the perimeter. Nina, resolved not to cause a commotion, remained on the outskirts of the gathering. Her presence was tolerated, rather than welcomed. Drew and Michael spoke in clipped tones, not quite frigid but certainly not warm. The tension between them was hardly contained. Then there was Jason, quiet, careful, and more withdrawn than anyone had anticipated. Jason had only returned a few days before, slipping back into Port Charles quietly. His very presence exposed long-buried wounds. There had been no grand explanation for his absence, only ambiguous responses and sideways queries. What had surprised those close to him was not simply his homecoming, but the obsession he now appeared to carry with him. Jason was not the same. He was colder and distracted, and everything swirled around Britt Westbourne. Britt had been missing for a while, and her whereabouts remained unknown. Rumors circulated, some claimed she was dead, while others insisted she was hiding. Jason would not talk about it, but he asked questions. He encountered folks in the shadowy corners of Port Charles. He stared at old photographs. Every free moment he had, he chased down any rumors about Britt's location. Jason, who had previously stood peacefully in Michael's corner, suddenly stood away, his eyes continually probing for something only he could see. When Jason arrived into Willow's wedding that day, his suit was nicely pressed but his manner was sharp-edged and remote. Many people took notice. He gave Carly a little nod and a quick glance at Michael, but his gaze remained fixed on Willow. Something changed at that very instant. It was not romantic. It was the expression of someone witnessing a symbol, something beautiful and precious that did not belong in the filthy chaos he had been living in. Willow's wedding ceremony began on time, with calm and graceful music. She strolled through the archway and into the courtyard, where friends and family were waiting. Michael stood before the altar, his expression unreadable. Willow stepped nearer him, her eyes searching for a glimmer of warmth, a connection. She discovered it, but it was ephemeral. Something wasn't right. She sensed it in the air. Then came the initial surprise. Michael hesitated when it was time to say his vows. It wasn't lengthy, but it was enough to elicit murmurs. He recovered immediately, speaking the lines with practiced confidence, but Willow could tell he wasn't completely committed. She tried not to express it on her face. Jason, standing in the back, kept his gaze fixed on Michael throughout. Following the ceremony, the reception began. Speeches, dancing, the clinking of glasses. On the surface, everything appeared to be wonderful. But below it all, anxiety crackled. Jason confronted Spinelli near the bar, mumbling inquiries about encrypted messages and ancient digital trails. Spinelli attempted to deflect, but Jason's voice was sharp and left no room for discussion. Meanwhile, Willow excused herself and went inside to get some air. She discovered Nina standing near a window, holding a glass of champagne and smiling nervously. It was not a conflict. It was not dramatic. It was sad. Nina congratulated Willow softly and genuinely. But then she brought up Michael's recent trips, secretive phone calls, financial arrangements. It wasn't spoken maliciously, yet the inference lingered. Willow's thoughts began to spiral. She had trusted Michael. She believed in the family's vision. But doubts were sneaking in gradually and steadily. She later asked Carly about it. Carly, of course, attempted to deflect. She blamed stress, business, and everything but betrayal. But Willow was aware that Carly was concealing something. She always had good intentions, but the lies piled up. Meanwhile, Jason had his own confrontation, this time with Michael. The conversation occurred discreetly on the garden path behind the reception tent. Jason demanded to know where Drew had gone. Michael deflected, annoyed by Jason's lack of etiquette. Jason pressed harder, mentioning a name that made Michael flinch. Britt. Michael waved him off, accusing Jason of being infatuated and turning his back on his family. But Jason did not flinch. His voice was low and powerful. "She's not dead," he explained. "And I'm going to find her." The confrontation did not go well. Michael returned to the event, smiling tightly for the guests, but his rage was growing. Willow noticed it. She noticed everything now, every shadow on Michael's face, every time he backed away from her touch. She began to wonder if this marriage had actually failed before it begun. As the night progressed, Brooke Lynn sang a song for them. Guests danced. Champagne flowed. However, Jason stayed off to the side, his phone always in hand, skimming messages and photographs. He left early, and no one stopped him. Carly watched him leave, her expression a mix of worry and resignation. Back at the penthouse, Jason pulled out a photo of Britt that he had stashed inside his gun safe. Her eyes grinned back at him, caught in time. He spoke her name like a prayer, his fingertips tracing the contours of her face. He had leads. He had suspicions. There were sightings in Greece and whispers in Berlin. None have confirmed. But Jason's instinct told him she was still alive, and in danger. Willow's wedding night concluded quietly. She and Michael shared a suite at the Metro Court, complete with rose petals and soothing candlelight. But they hardly touched. Michael said he was fatigued. Willow pretended not to notice. She lay awake long after he had fallen asleep, staring at the ceiling, wondering if she had bound her life to a man who was dying. The ripple effects persisted for several days afterward. Jason went dark again, leaving town abruptly and without explanation. Carly, unsurprisingly, defended him. She informed everyone that he was working on something important for Sonny's former firm. But Sam knew better. She had seen that sight in his eyes before. It was not about duty. It was personal. Spinelli ultimately gave in and admitted to assisting Jason in tracking down Britt's last known location. The investigation led to a private medical center in Europe, which is notorious for catering to the wealthy and secretive. No patient with Britt's name had ever been registered, but a Jane Doe with a similar injury profile had been admitted a year ago. Jason escaped Port Charles before anyone could stop him. Willow returned home and began asking questions. She faced Michael immediately. She inquired about the covert bank transfers, missed meetings, and texts that he consistently deleted. Michael, cornered, admitted that he had been working on something big, something that may upset the balance of power in Port Charles. It involved Sonny's enterprise, Drew's ambitions, and a fair amount of risk. He said he'd been protecting her. But Willow didn't feel safe. She felt betrayed. The illusion of her ideal day had collapsed. Jason was chasing ghosts. Michael was playing a deadly game. And she was standing in the middle, trying to decide if love was enough to keep her grounded. As the summer progressed, the stress increased. Jason sent one message from the road. A snapshot of a hospital in the Swiss Alps and 3 words. She was here. Carly handed the message to Sonny, who said nothing but tightened his jaw in the way he did when his world shifted. Willow returned to work at the hospital, thinking that normalcy would relieve the pain. It did not. She met patients every day and comforted strangers, yet she felt more alone than ever. The man she married was disappearing into the shadows. The guy who could have been her defender had vanished once more, consumed by his desire. And Britt, always just out of reach, remained the unresolved riddle that haunted them all.